Welcome to the Solid Signal podcast for the week of September 18th, 2017. You know, fall is almost upon us. By the time I record next week's podcast, it'll be here. And fall used to mean a couple of things when I was a little bit younger. It meant new cars, for one thing. And I was always excited to go get those magazines that showed what all the new cars were going to be like and chart all the changes that things we're going to get. But more importantly, perhaps more interestingly for this particular podcast, fall always used to mean new television shows, and it still kind of does, but not the way it used to. Fall used to mean a rollout of dozens of new television shows all in the same week, and there was too much to watch, and you didn't know what to do. And these were in the days when VCRs were just kind of in their infancy, and you didn't know what you could even record. Could you record two things at the same time? And why did the VCR keep flashing 12, 12, 12, and all of that stuff? Well, things have changed, and these days, fall television rolls out at a much more leisurely pace. You know, I think that you'll find in the next day or so, you can read an article at the Solid Signal blog.solidsignal.com, where I detail the roughly 20 shows total that are premiering on broadcast television in the next 2 weeks. Compare that to about 60 shows last year and a similar number for the 20 years before that. Interestingly enough, we're just not seeing that kind of massive rollout that we saw in years past. And perhaps that's not such a bad thing. There used to be this feeling that fall was for television and football, and the spring was for flowers, and the summer was, I don't know, when you go pick the crops or something. But there was never anything on in the summer. And now we've seen that when it comes to television, it shows up when it's ready. And that's a good thing. That it really is better for everybody, because what you see is that new shows get the kind of time that they need to breathe, get the exposure they need. Instead of trying to figure out which of the next 60 shows you're going to have time to watch in 2 weeks, then you really have time to decide whether a show is for you. The changes come about because of pay TV channels, premium channels, and of course streaming, which have really redefined the way that we watch television. You know, it's no longer just a matter of catching a show in its first 1 or 2 episodes and then becoming a fan or not becoming a fan. It's now about shows that take a long time to roll, because sometimes a show won't even take off until its second season, and then you have the opportunity now to go back and binge watch the first season and try to figure out what you're missing. This has allowed for a whole new form of storytelling that really streaming has pioneered and we find is leaked over to pay TV and premium TV, to where shows can really be these long, leisurely, complex kind of stories that they never were before, before you really had to have these episodic tales because you couldn't count on people watching every single week. They had lives and they didn't have VCRs. You needed a lot more structure in those days, and today, with the internet and with all sorts of other ways that you can get information to people, social media, on their phones, etc., you don't need to have this structured, oh my gosh, fall TV is happening this week, this is when it is. Pretty much now the only thing that happens on schedule is Shark Week. And that's not that Shark Week is necessarily the king of all media, as it were, but it is kind of neat that it does happen. You know, looking forward, I think that we're in the middle of a real transition in TV. People talk about peak TV, they talk about the golden age of TV, and they talk about how with about 600 hours a year of new content being created, it's almost impossible to consume it all. And I don't think you were intended to consume it all. And I think this is all evolving in interesting and new ways that we haven't quite figured out yet. And it's going to make the entire TV watching experience so much better. It may make things more expensive for the short term because you're going to end up paying for a lot more streaming services than you ever expected, and you probably are going to keep your pay TV subscription at least at some level because it's going to be the cheapest way to get authenticated to a number of different providers so that you can go to FX or USA or TBS or whatever and watch the kind of shows that you want to watch. So in short, fall TV premiere week may be a thing of the past, but good TV most certainly is not. That's about it for the Solid Signal podcast. I'll see you all next week.